And finally this evening, KMTV's very own Chris Deacy, presenter of Kent Film Club, former University of Kent lecturer and presenter of Generation Y, a series all about religion and spirituality, has now written a book to add to his plethora of things that Chris does. The book studies the relationship between nostalgia and religion, using the Queen's death as inspiration. Well, find out more. Kristen spoke to Chris at the University of Kent, where he wrote most of his novel.
I was here for 20 years in this office since 2018. So every day I'd come from the Gulbenkian and get my coffee. That was my muse. I'd walk over here and all the writing actually for the Nostalgia book was carried out in this office.
Lecturer, radio host, TV presenter, now a writer. Chris Deacy may be most known to the viewers at home as the face of Kent's Film Club.
Hello, I'm Chris and welcome to the Kent Film Club.
But behind the scenes, he has been working away on his debut piece of work. But what inspired the KMTV veteran to turn his hand to writing?
I went through a period of really needing to connect with people a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I found that in connecting with people, it was helping me both with my podcast and also with the writing of the book. So everything seemed to be happening at the same time, and Generation Y was the most sublime experience I've ever had. And I, from that, of course, ended up doing various other media work with the wonderful team at KMTV. In the week that the Queen died, we started the process of filming Generation Y. So that took me around the country, meeting young people, talking about what faith matters to them. So I was learning from the young people who were talking about their religion, whether it was witchcraft, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So I was being educated by the individual practitioners and their families that we were meeting.
But it was places, as much as people, that inspired his journey with writing, with Canterbury campus being at the heart of the work he did.
As you can see around here, there are so many books. This is just the religious studies section, but I'd go to the film section on the floor below us. I was learning about sociology and anthropology and obviously effectively taking books out from authors and on topics that I didn't know very much about.
So I have to be quiet, but here in the Templeman Library is where Chris spent a lot of his time researching and reading more about religion, helping him to write around 85,000 words of his own, putting his own spin on the books that surround me now.
Given this book is not necessarily bedtime reading for people here in the county, I asked him what he hoped to achieve with the novel.
So I've written lots of books on religion, but this in a way is the most special one to me because it's about what matters to real people rather than just the stories that are told on the pages of these very erudite and scholarly works.
With the release of the book just around the corner, Chris is looking to the future just as much as his book draws on his nostalgic past. Kristen Hawthorne for KMTV in Canterbury.
And Chris joins me now. We are both beaming ear to ear watching that. How do you feel? I suppose proud?
And that was really surreal because what Kristen captured so wonderfully is the routine over many years of me getting my coffee from the Gulbenkian on the University of Kent campus, going to my office and writing this book, but also doing lots of other things. And I think actually that's the creative process. You're not just doing one thing, you're wearing multiple hats. And actually going around the country with Generation Y, the filming for that also helped because the death of the Queen, obviously we didn't expect. And it sort of kick-started this national sense of what matters to us. What is our relationship with the past? The Queen as the grandmother of the nation or the Commonwealth, and people's individual stories, which of course I'd been telling through my Nostalgia podcast. So it all came together. So I was travelling up, we were staying in various hotels, doing all these wonderful pieces. And at the same time I was thinking, right, I need this for my book. So it somehow came together. I can't believe it did. And somehow, as Kristen said, 85,000 words were somehow written in the period of 2022-23.
And you've probably said a lot more on all the various shows you've done with us.
Yes.
But it is fascinating to see the Queen take such a prominent place in the book on the cover. Of course, it's going to be released in January. I suppose, explain to me a bit more about that connection, because as you said, it is so poignant and it really reflects on that nostalgia aspect that we talk to you about time and time again, that you're such an expert in. And it's, I suppose, will it grab people's attention because it's something you remember?
Yeah, and also it was the linchpin, if you like. It brought everything together because the death of the Queen made people sort of question, what does family mean? what are our relationships? A lot of people, and a lot of the case study that I undertook was looking at what was happening on the radio at the time. People were sending in their reminiscences of meeting the Queen, but also talking about maybe their parents or grandparents who had remembered the time when the Queen came to the throne in the early 1950s. So it was that family conversation. So it wasn't about going to church. It wasn't about Westminster Abbey and the coronation. It was, or the funeral. It was largely about people's own individual reminiscences, and they were deeply spiritually based.
How different, very quickly, but how different would the book have looked and the content within it if this didn't happen, but also if you weren't doing so much with KMTV?
Now, that is the million-dollar question, because there was going to be a nostalgia book, but I knew that I was missing, a case study. And on the day, the 8th of September 2022, that I got permission from the University of Kent to do have my study leave and write this book, the Queen died. And so I asked this question all the time: what would have happened? It would have been a very different book. It couldn't have been a book that I'd be as proud of as I am as this one.
Well, maybe there's a next one.
Of course. Well, yes.
Who knows? Maybe a ninth book. Chris, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Abby.
Incredibly proud, the whole KMTV team. Thank you very much for joining us. That's all we've got time for. Good night.